with these new strikes on Iran. U.S. Central Command announcing hours ago that there were these Iranian threats in the Strait of Hormuz. The president is falling back deep into a crisis he created and he recently claimed was solved. Experts say, and many people have said a version of this, that this was the worst American foreign policy mistake by choice, probably since the infamous Iraq War. The footnote to that being that not only does everyone kind of agree on that by now, but Donald Trump ran against the Iraq War and that kind of interventionism only to offer it unilaterally to the public without so much as a consultation with Congress. One of the things he said is this would be over fast and we'd be in a better position. It's not over, and we're currently not in a better position. The president meeting with NATO leaders, a backdrop of the war and the kind of type of longstanding alliances that he has eschewed to his own peril. Now, there was, of course, a ceasefire with a road to peace. And one of the tricky things about covering this, we've talked about this, report on this quite openly, is if you are rooting for peace and progress, then even a seemingly, shall we say, unpredictable or uncertain, vague peace deal is something that you might, on behalf of peace or America, say, well, I hope it works out. I hope the ceasefire holds. So there's an interesting discourse around this, because even when it looked shaky, a lot of people, including usual Trump critics, said, well, yeah, if we can get a ceasefire and get out of there, good. But we are a long way from that. Trump now says to reporters today, quote, I think the ceasefire is over. I don't want to deal with them, Iran, anymore. He is, as some might say, leading from behind. He's saying he thinks it's over because maybe it is already in such bad shape that he, as a messaging maven, wants to get ahead of that. But, of course, this is bigger than messaging and who says the thing is over first. The violence began with Iran attacking shipping sources, shipping targets again. The U.S. responded with new airstrikes, and they've said basically they're canceling part of the peace deal. That matters because this was one of those multi-step things where both sides are supposed to say, we agree on this, and we won't do more threats or violence, military action, etc., and we'll try to fill in the rest. Well, we are now off the first step. You know, I always try to keep things clear, simple when possible here. The first step of the deal has fallen apart. Trump is making threats, and we have volleys and exchanges of the use of force, which means we are even further away, you might say, than the day of the deal to the second part, where we would actually get this thing all worked out, reopen the strait, and try to go back at least to where we were before Trump started this unpopular war. Now, that's just my summary. You might say, okay, that's the news, but what are the other indicators of how this is going tonight? Why is the Iran problem back in the news? Well, I can show you oil prices around the globe spiking, markets jittery, sinking in places. We are back into the very long-term quagmire that Trump said we wouldn't get. People don't want to be here. 60% of Americans say the war, as we understand it today, was not worth it. I want to bring in our guests for this and a range of topics. Molly Jong-Fast, the New York Times contributing writer and MS analyst, is here. And the former mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio. He governed from 2014 to 2022. He has dealt with Trump and a lot of these other issues. And he also, we should mention, when you think big picture, was working with President Obama on the important issue of police reform.
This is not a problem simply of Ferguson, Missouri. This is a problem that is national.
The president referred to what each of us feels that gives us a sense of urgency.
Welcome to both of you. We showed that to remind people you've been in the arena. There's a lot of people who talk. Molly and I talk. There's nothing wrong with that. But you've been there. You've been alongside the president. You've tangled, certainly, in office with the current president. And so when you look at something like this that touches on foreign policy, what was the goal? Did we achieve it? But also, obviously, how Americans are experiencing, people that your former constituents, gas prices up, economic uncertainty, people having to change and cancel, even basic vacation plans, because there's polling that shows people can't budget for a vacation where they might drive nearby and come back because the prices are too high. How do you view this all tonight?
I think we have, Ari, two extraordinary phenomena happening at the same time. We've got a military action by the U.S., a war the U.S. created that the American people rejected immediately. When you think about the history, including the Iraq War, including the Vietnam War, Unfortunately, in some cases, the people of this country gave the benefit of the doubt a little too quickly and believed in their military or their president until they got to a point too often where they said, wait a minute, this is imperialism or this is ill-considered and we shouldn't be doing this. This time, the American people rejected the war literally as it was starting.
Right.
They did not believe in Trump's rationale. They did not believe we had any business being in Iran. And, of course, Trump did everything to keep the Congress away from any kind of actual decision. That's one part. But the second part is the war then created a whole different economy and a whole different sense of economic insecurity. The gas prices, you know, we literally, this was the fastest increase in gas prices since the 1970s. So that's such a shock to an American public that was already hurting so much economically. Those two things, a war the people didn't want and a huge impact on the kitchen table reality of making ends meet, that's changed our politics fundamentally. And so what I'd say is we are living through a moment that is going to live much farther than just 2026 or the midterm elections. This is going to have, I think, a kind of transcendent effect on our politics.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. This is the kind of realignment or foreign policy doctrine when you look at the president and NATO and what he's tried to do there to change our alliances and how he's waged this failing war. It could have long-term effects. Politically, at home, it's super unpopular. The mayor mentions that. I want to play a little bit of Joe Rogan, who's probably the most influential person on the center right, and Fox.
First of all, the deal was a joke from the very beginning.
He sounds frustrated to me. He sounds tired as well.
I'm going to f it up by going to Iran. I mean, this war is not something anybody that's conservative wanted.
I don't know what exit looks like. I don't know what winning looks like at this point.
He never defined what winning would look like. And later on, we saw him pivot to reopening the strait being winning, which had been open before. Look, what's so interesting about this moment is you have a president who ran on two things, making things cheaper and ending foreign wars. So what did he do? He started numerous foreign invasions, incursions, whatever you want to call them. Sometimes he calls it a war, sometimes not. And what did it do? It made gas prices go through the roof. And what we're seeing now is Trump was so desperate to end this thing. And he did, he offered them all sorts of monetary chips and, whatever. And ultimately, it didn't work. And so you have Donald Trump cruising into the midterms, gas prices spiking, and he's trying to change the narrative. And I just think that he's really underestimated what a problem this is going to be. Look, Iran is a huge country, 80 million plus people. It's not Iraq. And there's real religious fervor in that country in a way that there's not. And he thought he could sort of buy them off. And it hasn't worked.